So the site had this historic entertainment component from having been the drive-in for the community at large for a number of years, and then this Cinemaplex for a number of years. And we felt that there was something about that was important. And then when we sort of got further involved, you really couldn't avoid the entertainment component because it was owned by a theater company who wanted to remain there. So the entire planning of the project for the first 3 years was around that theater and accommodating what they wanted, which initially was a 14-plex in the back of the project with 2 gigantic parking garages adjacent to it. And that was a problematic plan for us because as retail developers, you really want to plan from the main street and work your way backwards, which is how it's actually going today. But we didn't own the land at that time, and we were subjected to the demands of the prior owner. We were fortunate that as time marched on, they were not in a position to move forward and stay there, which allowed us to buy the property and completely change the plan after 3 years of working with the county and trying to get it right. So that lent itself to this wonderful opportunity of not being tied to a big sort of monster movie theater. And if anyone has spent any time in this part of the world, you recognize relatively quickly that there's a need for a little bit more of a sophisticated offering than what was being provided. And that was across the board, from the entertainment to the food. And so we went out and we researched as many of these kinds of projects as we could find across the country. And we even went over to Europe and spent some time there, just trying to understand what felt right for this community. And where we ended up with it was that, starting with the theater, it made sense to us that the best educated county in the country should have an art house theater. And that was really a distinguishing quality about Fairfax County that was mind-boggling to us, that there wasn't something better than what was provided. And there was a little community in the back of a shopping center theater that was really showing art, but the presentation really wasn't of, it needed to be upgraded. And so we went after what we felt were the 2 best in the country at doing that, and both of them were interested primarily because they felt that this market should have a theater because of its high level of education. And that was a big thing that the theater was looking for. Additionally, we had the opportunity to do every other kind of theater, whether it was AMC or Regal or whomever, but that would have put us on a path of going in a more traditional direction that we weren't really excited about. We felt like this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to truly give a community a place that was maybe not just for the 18 to 30-year-olds, but really we were going to skew it a little bit older and more sophisticated because we felt that the community warranted that. And so from the theater decision about getting the art house, that then lent itself to going after independent food operators, as opposed to, say, the Cheesecake Factories of the world who were interested in coming to this place. And that became an exciting odyssey to go on, because that community and this market is exploding. DC's really going through a renaissance on the food front, and there were multiple exciting chefs that we were meeting with and educating about what was going on out here. And ultimately, we were able to land quite a few locals and quite a few that weren't local, which we felt fit the needs of trying to create a diversified culinary experience, whether it was, if you're there with your kids, or if you wanted to have a drink after work, or if you wanted a white table experience, or a ladies' lunch, or a business dinner. I mean, we thought through all of those needs, and we're trying to curate the right users for each one of those needs. And we wanted to make sure that at least on the food front, there was a lot of personality, because when you visit these places all over the country, it's the same 4 tenants, and it gets pretty bland pretty quickly. From there, we went into the retailers, and the retailing was hard and remains a challenge, because you're trying to get local tenants to open second or third locations, and they're not set up operationally for that typically, so there's a lot of hand-holding there. And you really are trying to communicate a certain kind of experience to that retailer that was a little different than just a Target as an anchor. We tried to lease with the, oh, by the way, there's a Target there, as opposed to leading with the Target, because we didn't want the Mosaic experience to be dominated by that user. We wanted it to be the, oh, by the way user. From there, we were able to get 2 or 3 commitments, and that community is relatively tight, small retailing community. And so it was a function of just consistently trying to educate folks as to what the demographics of the community were, what the design elements were that we were trying to create there. We really went for a whole different level of design, which we were hoping would be an added inducement for folks to take that leap of faith and come to a different kind of project. And we're hopeful that that trend continues. We're about 90% leased in the first phase, and we have a lot of work to do to carry it out. But we feel good about the group of locals we've got now. And of course, we wanted to go after certain national tenants that the smaller fashion locals could feed off of, which is why Neiman's Last Call and Anthropologie were so important, because the local guys don't come without a couple of those nationals that drive the traffic. And Target wasn't hitting that box for the locals. It was the Anthropologie and the Neiman's that really resonated with the local tenants.